Alright, today we're working on a mod where if you have your ignition on, as you can see now by the light, you can flip a button on your dash and get some off-road lights. So with that said, I'm going to show you the step-by-step process on how to get a quad headlight set up on a 66 Jeep truck. But as everyone knows, underneath all those muscle grills, all those pig nose grills, etc., so on and so forth, pretty much the same fascia exists, the same metal part exists for all of those Jeeps. So I'll show you how to take care of that so you can avoid the costly headlight bezels that some jackalopes such as myself go ahead and cut up for this mod. Anyway, you don't need those bezels to make this work. I can show you a couple of ways to get it done, and we'll take care of business. Alright? Here's standard and Phillips head screwdriver, a fuse, electrical tape. We've got quick disconnects, female, and different gauge styles. We also have the ever important rocker switch. So this part number is 40600. You don't have to get this one, you don't have to get this one, and you don't have to get this one. You just need something that'll obviously work in its place. Now the important ingredient in this whole conversion process is the Napa off-road lighting series, also happen to be called the Spotlight Aircraft. Now the part number on the Spotlight Aircraft replacement lamp is 4509, runs 13 volts. So with that said, there it is again. So this is what we are replacing. Now this is obviously an old one. I keep all my spare parts because if it's not broken, hey, keep it around. This is what it looks like when it comes from Napa. This is a spare that I had obviously to replace any of my lamps that went out, but hey, nothing's gone out yet. So this is what it looks like. So I'm going to pull out the Napa Spotlight, and I'm going to pull out the one that comes from the $12 Harbor Freight reverse light. Yes, this is the reverse light from Harbor Freight or Napa or wherever. They all look the same to me. So you can see that this one is a part number something 20. It looks like. Alright, so what we've got here is a Rhino Chaser setup. This is an actual one I bought from a local guy off the internet for I can't remember how much. Anyway, the grills are hanging up over there. But anyway, so instead of refabbing this one or working on the panel or working on the other step side, I'm just going to use this fascia to show you because this is a spot we'll be working with right here. Now, if you have a later model FSJ, whether it's a Grand Wagoneer, Grand Cherokee, wide track, whatever, this is pretty much kind of what your grill is going to look like. This is the center grill off a 82 Cherokee wide track that I just pulled off a pull and save. And when you take this monster off, this grill insert and the grill frame, you're going to end up with something like this, minus of course the round headlights and bezels. So it's all the same. So once you pull your grill off, this is what you're going to find. Alright, for you J-Truck aficionados and you Wagoneer aficionados, you obviously have to remove the bolts. And I'm not going to bore you too much with this process, but this is what we're going to have to do. Alright, so they're off and you've got a couple of choices. Clearly, this bulb is a little too small for the hole. This one is just about right. Either way, you've got a whole lot of area to cover there and you need something to do that. So you can take your bezels and if they're hammered, you can cut them out to fit the spot. So what that means is you cut them out and you'll end up with something like that. Set that someone had cut up for ventilation purposes and they were cutting them and then painting them on the inside burgundy to match the truck and also black. So you can do that or you can do something else, and I'm going to show you the something else because I don't know a lot of guys who want to cut up those pie tins because everyone wants a set. Alright, so give me a minute, I'll get that set up. Alright, if you're reusing the pie tins and you're going to be cutting them out where they need to be, that's one thing. I'm going to show you how to make a template and then cut them out of a thin piece of metal that you can use a pair of tin snips to go ahead and do. I realize that this metal right here, I'm not even sure what it is, it's really super thin. I don't know that I would use this in a real world application, but I imagine if you polish it up nice, it'd look kind of funky on an old rig and give it kind of a retro vibe. At any rate, I'm going to show you templates and cut them out, and we'll go from there. Alright, so the templates are out maligned in Sharpie, and I'm going to go ahead and cut them out with a pair of tin snips. Alright, so they're cut out, and they're based upon the shape of the original pie. So you can see they're a little larger than they should be, and that's okay for now. So this is kind of what it looks like. I've done this once before with the 77 Wagoneer I had, and I actually made some custom pie plates, trimmed them out with some door edge sealer that I got from Shucks or O'Reilly's or something like that, and then kicked them out about that much and kind of did an air dam induction on a 77 Wagoneer. Anyway, so the process is halfway there. We haven't even modified any of the lights to fit yet. We're still making the bezels. Now again, so far I have about maybe 15 or 20 minutes into this. The metal is super thin. I don't know what gauge that is. And if you wanted to have someone punch these out or make these for you, locally, Spokane 10, I've taken some stuff there, or consult a CNC machine shop, water jet, blah blah blah. 1,000 guys out there have a shop that they're capable of doing this. I try to do all my own stuff to save money, because like most Jeep guys, I put all my money into my Jeeps, and that doesn't leave me much money to begin with or at the end of that process. So anyway, step 1 out of a million is complete, and we're ready to move on to step 2, which is measure the inner diameter of the light, which is roughly kind of like that, only centered. So we'll go from there and we'll see what we get, and we'll call it good in just a couple of minutes. Alright, after eyeballing and tracing the lamp, what I'll call the naked lamp, I went ahead and took a metal ruler. That's my favorite because they're hard to bend, and I'm just essentially getting a basic measurement of what is on either side. So I'm going to call that good, and that's just eyeballing. And if I look at it and it seems like it's a little off, I'll remeasure and I'll trim what I need to. So the next step is to drill a pilot hole here and here, and once you get that done, you take the tin snips, just your basic circular. These are designed to draw or to cut a circle, and any metal working shop, gas shop, welding shop will have a pair, or Home Depot actually carries this stuff too, or Lowe's or whatever. Alright, so drilling 2 pilot holes, cut them out, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I left 1 and 2 tabs. You can see my pilot hole here, my pilot hole there. I left 2 tabs that I can trim back and modify, because I need something that is going to help keep this little monster in place. So that means I need a tab or 2 to be able to drill into this to mount it to that. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and try to make those tabs as long as possible, but as thin as possible on either side. So the inner is trimmed out. I've got my 2 little tabs. Some of you guys who are serious off-roaders and maybe don't use your truck or full-size Jeep as a daily driver, but you use it pretty hardcore on the trails and whatnot, might want to do more than just 2. But 2's all I've ever ran on mine, and 2's all I've ever needed. So, and I use mine as a weekend driver, sometimes a daily driver, but with the 401, slightly modified and built with the T18, Dana 300 transfer case, and 410 gears and 36-inch tires. It's not exactly the most economical in terms of gas, but it sure is a blast to drive, which is half the battle and half the fun. So anyway, so there it is, and then now the next step is to, oh my god, what am I going to do and how am I going to get in there? Well, that's coming up. Alright, so there's the light as it's sitting in there. Notice that it's just sitting in there and it's all loose and rattly and whatnot, which is just fine at this point because I still need to change out this bulb. At any rate, the point is now, how do you get it centered? And we're going to take care of that as soon as we change out that light bulb and we get it mounted. I also want to pre-drill the holes that are going to be able to make this line up where it's supposed to go and trim it so that it fits where I want it to go. Now, of course, once you mount everything together, you can take it in and out just like a regular light or a headlight, but you cannot adjust it without some difficulty. So the best way to adjust it, we'll go over that towards the tail end of the video, and if I forget, well, just let me know and I'll walk you through that process. It's all good. Alright, so I'm going to mount it to the ring itself as centered as possible. I do need to trim the edges. You can see that I've got a few little snagglies there. And if that means I need to get out my angle grinder and cut off wheel, then so be it. So once again, if you use a thicker gauge, you're not going to get this kind of flex, and it will be harder to go ahead and bend. But the thinner seems to work just as fine as anything else. Alright? So I've got self-tapping screws, kind of a man's best friend in his shop. Goes right through the thin metal, right through the rubber. And there is a obvious gap. Well, maybe not too obvious. Anyway, there's a gap there. And you can run some kind of adhesive like body seam seal or even painter's caulk, and then you can paint the whole thing to match your ride, or leave it black, or paint it black, or whatever you want to do, and go from there. You can also buy rubberized paint to clean that up, or put some Armor All or whatever product on there you want to shine it up. This is an obviously used reverse light. So now the idea is, how do you take that and get it to work in the space provided for this? Now, what I need to do is mark the holes that I want. Obviously, I want the lines to be up and down, or excuse me, horizontal. You can put it any way you want, like the old bezels. You can go like this. This is obviously the best way, since that's the way that gives you the most amount of light. Now again, we're going to go from this point to go ahead and mount, or try to mount and get it mocked up, and then we're going to change out that lens. You can leave these lenses in here. Once again, these off-road lights, these halogen style spot aircraft lights, are at Napa. Here's the part number one more time. The only big deal is these are strictly for off-road use. In other words, they're not DOT approved. If you get pulled over by the cops running these things, or you get into a fight because you forget to turn them off and you're blinding some guy in front of you and he's all jacked up on crack cocaine, and he comes out shooting his pea shooter, and then whatever happens, happens. So just be careful. And you don't have to mount them in your bezels. You can mount them on, obviously, on the newer style that don't have the Rhino grill. They have their mounting brackets right about here. Right about here. Some of them have one here. And then, of course, it all mounts or bolts right up here to the fascia. I've seen some guys mount them right there and retain the bezels, whatever. So the process of hooking all this stuff up will work no matter how you want to hook up these kind of El Cheapo off-road lights. Again, my son's truck, but I do know this. I did it to my truck, and I use them all the time, especially when I'm driving the back roads at night on my way home from work, and I'm trying to keep an eye out for deer and the popo. Alright, I got my holes drilled, and I'm going to take about 1/4 inch off. So I measured all the way around, and this is how I just basically eyeballed it, and then just put my finger right against the lip of what I wanted, steadied it, and then just traced it all the way around. And no, I didn't get any cuts on my fingers. They are dirty as hell though, but that'll wash off, or eventually wear off. Anyway, it's all good. So that's the next step, the final trim, and then we get to basically do the same thing to the other side. I don't know that I want to show you that, because I still haven't done that, but it'll take the same amount of time. And there's a million ways to trim it down. There's a million ways to measure it. You just got to find something that works for you. Again, ruler, sometimes even the calibrated eyeball as it's called, and you are good to go. Alright, so here is the light kind of installed, and it's ready to be wired. I realize I'm working on just a fascia, and I can access the back and all that, and you cannot. So the idea is you basically check, recheck, and align, and take care of it that way, and then the wiring is next.